Hi, I'm Catherine Morrison. I started powerlifting because I developed type 1 or juvenile diabetes as an adult. So I started lifting purely for that health reason, and I did not expect to like it at all. Yes, it's very helpful as a diabetic, but it's just fun and relaxing. When you're lifting, you can't think about anything except the lift. You got to think about where your body is, where your breath is, and so the rest of the world just falls away. And I love that part of it. There was a woman who trained with the same trainer that I did, and she was 84, and she was training in lifting. And he wanted her to compete in this meet, and she wouldn't do it unless another woman did it too. And so I wasn't really interested in competing, but I thought, geez, I really wanted people to see Joyce do her thing. So I entered that meet, and that got me started in competition. One of the reasons I didn't want to compete is, and this is bias on my part, I thought male lifters would be amused by what women lifters did in terms of the amount that we could lift or the fact that we were lifting, and I wasn't really up for that kind of sort of condescending, and that is not how it is at all. Male lifters are incredibly supportive. All lifters support other lifters. You know, gender orientation is not a part of it, nor is body shape. It's an incredibly body positive sport. And when I realized that, it was like, okay, I want to see women up here. Good morning, Amy.
Hey, Catherine.
My name is Matthew Marcoux. I'm a licensed athletic trainer at Momentum Performance and Wellness. I've been working for Catherine for just under a year, somewhere between 6 and 8 months. I've coached for a long period of time, but never in a competitive setting. So it was exhilarating, it was wild, it was new, it was intense, but it went really well. Everything that we did planning-wise worked out as well as we could have hoped, and in some cases better. As for Catherine, it's not as much about the end result as it is the transition from point A to point B. And she puts more energy and effort into the transition process than she really does what the end point is. And because of that, she doesn't skip steps, she doesn't miss details. It's very systematic, and then it's fairly predictable. We have a good idea when it's time to compete, where she's going to be, and then you make some subtle adjustments along the way, and it's an amazing process.
Generally work with my trainer to see what is there about my form or my body that could be a part of the plateau. I mean, at a certain point, we're all going to plateau. Just don't keep going up and up and up and up. So in this last, from December until now, I have scoliosis, not severe, but so I have a curvature in my spine that influences the flexibility and the strength in my left shoulder. It happens that I'm left-handed, so you would think I would have that, greater grip strength, greater whatever. We did a tremendous amount of work on that left shoulder, and that helped me with my bench plateau. And I think that over time, it's going to help me with my squat because I have a slight sway when I come up.
Most people don't perform at their maximal capacity. So even as you age, Even as you start to get to the point where you're maybe not going to be at your highest potential, there's always room for growth. Sometimes that growth may look more like a personal record as opposed to a world record. Sometimes it looks like both. Sometimes it works like neither. But with most activities, there's going to be a peak point. You'll never know where that is. You'll never know when that is. There's no way to tell. I mean, law of averages will give you an idea, but progress is individual.
8 or 9 national records in my federation, and I think 5 world records. Earlier is the federation I lift with, which is the American Drug-Free Powerlifting Federation, or the World Drug-Free Powerlifting Federation, is a smaller federation than a couple of the other lifting organizations nationally or internationally. I'm the most comfortable with how stringent their drug requirements are in terms of the anti-drug list that they use. They use the WADA list, which is the World Athletic Doping Agency, and that's the same lift standard the Olympics use. So there's a whole host of drugs you can't use, there's a whole host of supplements you can't use, and insulin is on that list because you can abuse insulin as a means of managing weight loss. It wasn't hard to get around that. I needed a physician's letter, certifying that yes, in fact, I am a diabetic. This is required for me on a daily, constant basis. That's all fine. The challenge with lifting as a type 1 diabetic is that all of us store glucose in our livers. And when your body releases either adrenaline or cortisol, so if you're, putting out the energy, your liver goes back to prehistoric times and says, oh, you need to either fight or flee. Let me release some glucose to help you out. So if I'm lifting, I'm putting out adrenaline and cortisol. And even if I haven't eaten a thing, my liver's saying, let me help you out. Let's flood your system with some sugar. So you have to really watch while you're lifting what your glucose is doing and make sure you're adjusting accordingly. It's entirely doable. It's not that you can't do it, it's just a factor. In a powerlifting competition, you can either go to what's called a full power meet, and that means you have to compete in this order, in the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. In a single event competition, you can choose. So you could say, I'm a bench press specialist, I'm only gonna bench today, I'm only gonna bench and deadlift, or you can do all 3. I compete in both kinds of events. I do full power and single event. I always do all 3 lifts in each event. I'm mostly interested in what I can do, just what my own body can do. And so it's just a good way to test it out. The older we get, there aren't going to be records to break. There will only be records to set.
The way it works is you have a series of different weight categories and you have a series of different age categories. So for each age and weight, there's okay, this is the max that's ever been done. We see that on paper and we can either say, yep, that's something that we're gonna beat, or let's not worry about beating that number, let's just go for a personal best. Now in Catherine's set of circumstances, she was able to beat most of the records pretty significantly. So we weren't really worried as much about how she compared to everybody else. It was a personal performance thing. Because she was going to be in a different age category, there was an entirely new set of numbers that she'd known that she'd successfully done before, whether it was in the gym and even in the competition setting. So she had a good level of confidence that her numbers were going to be competitive overall. It was more it's been a year since you've competed. It's been longer than a year since you competed. COVID kind of threw off training, lots of things going on in personal life. Let's just see what you can do. And I couldn't have hoped for anything better. It turned out really well.
I'm a really good deadlifter, not the best, it's the best lift for me. And so it's the most satisfying because I can pull a lot of weight. And I also think, at least for me, it's the easiest lift in terms of what you're asking your body to do. I think it's the easiest lift. The most satisfying thing is, I feel like I have an invisible superpower. Lifters aren't ripped, but bodybuilders are ripped. People who lift particularly to bulk up specific muscles. I'm really strong. But if you saw me, I mean, you know, sitting here in this chair, walking down the street, you wouldn't say, whoa, there goes a power lifter. So I have a strength that people can't tell by looking at me. And it's just, it's useful. You know, I'm a gardener, you know, I'm about to go pick up my bags of mulch, you know, and usually there's somebody who's kind and well-intended, you know, oh, can I help you carry this car? No, you know, one over here, one over there, I'll get them. It's just useful, and it's just useful. It feels good to know you're that strong. I just like people to not assume that older people can't be strong, and women are less likely to be strong. And it's just nice. I like the fact that people have to kind of check those assumptions. I mean, I'm little. I'm 5'2", so that it doesn't look like, you know, that kind of stuff's going to happen. Before I retired, I taught negotiation and conflict management, and lifting is the perfect metaphor for negotiation and conflict management, because what you learn is that some things are just too heavy to be lifted right now, and if you lift them anyway, you're going to get hurt. Some conflicts are too heavy to address in that particular moment. Might be better off to wait until you're cooler, might feel a little bit emotionally stronger, the other party might be cooler. I've also learned that you can get stronger, you can get more proficient, and that form and breath take you a long way. And in mediating, in negotiating, in managing conflict, form and breathing take you a long way. So for me, it was the perfect metaphor for the work that I did. And the goal of powerlifting is to move what seem to be immovable or especially heavy objects forward and have nobody get hurt in the process. And in my mind, the goal of a good negotiation or managing a good conflict is to take immovable differences and move them forward, or be able to put them down and have nobody get hurt. So, same thing.